Hello everyone. So we are trying something new here with our version of Table Talk, diving into D&D and board game content for Assorted Meeples. Contrary to what you're used to, I am indeed your corrupt overlord, minus 1.9 pounds of Bigfoot type hair.
And I'm Braden. You might see me on Steam as the business.
And he is also very much adjusting to having a big bald guy walking around his house.
It's weird. Very, very weird.
So we thought for our first discussion it made sense to go with one of our favorite board games, which is the legendary Lords of Waterdeep. And so when you kind of look at the various topics, one that jumps up instantly is we have some very strong opinions on which lords are worth playing and which ones automatically give a player a redo. Yes, there is a lord that bad, but we will get to that. So we thought it'd be fun. We'll each start with who we consider our worst three lords in the game to play, the ones who put you at sort of a disadvantage, and then the really good ones, and see where we match. I am guessing at least one place.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
Alrighty, so would you like to start with your third worst lord in the Lords of Waterdeep? And we are using the expansions because it's just the perfect game when you use both expansions. It really is meant to be played that way.
Agreed. Well, sure. I'll go ahead and start with my pick for third worst lord in the deck. Looks like we've got Nindil Jalbuck. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each piety quest and each skullduggery quest that you've completed. I'll be honest, piety and skullduggery are probably my two least favorite quests in the deck. Just if I had to pick my two least favorite out of the 5 that are available between Arcana, Commerce, Piety, Warfare, and Skullduggery.
See, and that's interesting because I like both of those individually, but I agree they're a terrible combination. Skullduggery, you need the rogues, you need the wizards. Then Piety, you need the soldiers, and you need the clerics, which means you find yourself scrambling for everything. If there's one or two shortages, and you are going to be finding some if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, you're just not going to get the pieces you need.
Well, and Piety and Skullduggery not only demand higher end pieces to operate correctly, they both also have a tendency to demand gold. So you're basically getting busted on 2 different fronts with these two being paired.
Yeah, on a gold poor board, that combination's just going to be devastating. So, alright, good pick. So, for me, my third worst, we have one of the originals, Caladorn Cassalanter. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each skullduggery quest and each warfare quest you completed. Now, aside from the hilarious fact that Felicia Day hates that one, based on a great tabletop episode, basically, it's one of those that annoys me because it sounds like those should go together so well. The warfare and the skullduggery, you kind of think of them as the 1 and 2 before getting to more specialized pieces, but they just don't. And kind of like we discussed earlier, warfare, your soldiers are your main ones, but then you also need clerics again a lot of the time, or sometimes you need a wizard. With the skullduggery, a lot of times you need an extra wizard, and you're dealing with extra corruption. And for whatever reason, every time I play this, I just have a hard time stringing together different quests. I find that I'm either going all warfare or all skullduggery. And one of the counterintuitive things for me is, I think you'll agree, a lot of the best quests on the board are warfare. Like, they just have really solid plot quests.
Warfare is easily in my top 2.
Which means other players, even those not going for a warfare bonus, will take some of your best quests off the table. And if you're drawing number 4 because the castle's all the way across the table, you can find yourself without your best plot quests. You can find other people having all the materials you need, and you're just kind of left with the bag.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. Warfare and Skullduggery do sound like they should go really well together, and in some games they will. If things fall the right way, you can make this one work. But much like my issue with Piety and Skullduggery, you have a lot of the same problems, plus you're fighting the popularity of Warfare on top of that, which forces you to lean on Skullduggery harder. And since Skullduggery is kind of the worst of the 5 quest types in pretty much all cases, that's just not going to put you in a good position long term.
Yeah, there are just certain quests that everybody on the board is going to go after. And let's face it, you have the plot quest where you get 1 piece back after every completion. Everybody's going to go after that. You have the Yawning Portal. Everybody's going to go after that. You have the Lieutenant. Everyone's going to go after that. And so even if you're Skullduggery or Arcana, you pretty much are going to get your own plot quests. If you're Warfare, there's no guarantee of that. And that just waters down what should be a strong combination.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Who is your second least favorite?
Well, coming in at number 2 is Mirt the Moneylender. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each commerce and piety quest you completed. Yeah, I really don't like piety. It's just not my bag in this game. And all of the complaints that I have about Skullduggery and piety paired together are just amplified when you pair piety with commerce. Commerce is the single most money-driven quest line in the game. And then Skullduggery, I'd argue, is in 2nd or 3rd place there. And you've got Piety, which is taking up whichever spot Skullduggery just doesn't have. And Piety, on top of needing money, also requires you to pick up a bunch of clerics, which are a pain in the butt to accumulate. It's kind of splitting your attention in unhelpful directions again, much like my last pick was.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that Lord. I think we can agree no matter what. It's the best picture of all the Lords.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, picture-wise, we will make sure to have Phil insert a graphic down here, but...
You can't say no to that face.
You can't. It is fantastic, and the description of him is just great. But, yeah, there is a lot of problems with that one. If you're on a money-poor board, it's going to be brutal. And Commerce is probably my least favorite type of quest, because at least when you have the other ones, they tend to mainly take 1 or 2 types of soldiers. You know, you want soldiers and you want wizards, or you want rogues and you want priests. With Commerce, it's just like the shotgun. You need a little bit of everything. You need more money. And I think even their plot quests tend to be a little bit weaker because they take so much to actually get done. And so you just, at that point, you're already behind by the time you get the benefits. I personally kind of like that one, but man, you get the wrong board and you will get curb stomped.
I feel like I've had this one on the wrong board enough times, it's just stuck in my memory.
That is fair. Alrighty. At number 2 for me, we have, excuse the pronunciation, or feel free, fantasy adventure nerds, to correct me on this one, Nymara Scheiron. At the end of the game, you score 4 for each commerce quest and each Skullduggery quest you complete. Well, what to begin with that one? You have 2 of the least popular quest types in the deck. Which 2 need the most money? Even more than Piety, Skullduggery, and Commerce, and you're stuck with both. You're stuck with having to get a little bit of every type of piece. If you're on a money-poor board, or you're playing with a player like me or Braden, who love that spot in the expansion where give us corruption, give us that 5 gold, all of a sudden, you don't have enough money to get all your quests done. And that'll be a consistent problem in that game. And so to me, it's kind of it's that combination that it makes sense. In any fantasy adventure genre, it makes sense. But man, for the mechanics of the game, you basically, in my mind, you have to have 2 or 3 of the biggest money-making buildings come out early to even have a chance. And at that point, you don't even have an advantage because everybody has the access.
That is completely fair, and I'm just pulling up my notes here so that I can try and remember how to pronounce Nymara. But basically, every complaint that you have for Nymara is spot on, and pretty much every complaint I've got about Mirt can be said about Nymara. It's so reliant on money, and on just having a pile of different types of workers in your tavern. You're just getting pulled in too many different directions. You're going to have an uphill climb for the majority of the game working around what she wants you to do.
Oh, I think this is an easy one. We didn't even have to consult once this topic came up. So let's both give this the big thumbs down to begin with. The worst lord is obvious.
Well, hey Xanathar.
Hey Xanathar. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each corruption in your tavern.
You're a great author, Xanathar, but man, you suck as Lord of Waterdeep.
Xanathar's gotten 5e for D&D. Fantastic. But yeah, for this game, by far and away the worst. To the point where in our home games, we don't allow that card in the deck. You don't even have the option to play him in our home games. I mean, we can start off right away. 4 points for a corruption, and every corruption, you don't cancel out the negative points you get from them. So, if corruption is -9 at the end of the game, every bonus skull you're supposedly getting your points for is still -5. You're still losing points, which makes you the only lord who is losing points. And even if you play like a no corruption game, you could only use, 4 of those for like, what would be the math? 2, 4, 6, 7 points, 8 points, which still makes you the worst lord bonus in the game. To me, there's nothing redeeming about it unless I'm missing something.
No, I think you're pretty spot on at this point. You're capped on how many points you can reasonably expect to claim as a bonus. You're mitigating damage that's done to you throughout the game, and it's worth noting that you and I are both really heavy corruption players when it comes to Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
We do not shy away from the mechanic until it is at its breaking point, at which point we might step back and go, maybe this isn't worth losing 10 points.
Yeah, but if they dump it off the board instead of returning it, you're still going to get penalized because every corruption's still out there. Even if you misplayed it, where you never took the penalty for having corruption, that still maxes you out at like 40 or 50 points overpowered, which with a really good lord, you can get in a 3-person game. And that's misplaying it.
Yeah, and this just doesn't stack up even with all of our number 2 and number 3 picks. You can still play the game and have a shot at winning, even if you're working from an uphill climb.
Or make a respectable showing.
You're just screwed if you've got Xanathar.
Yeah, you lose. That's if you have any good players around you, it's everything else could fall your way and just wouldn't matter. So the rest of these, and especially the expansion, did some really spectacular stuff, but Xanathar, sorry, keep writing the guides.
Yeah. You're a fantastic author. Keep telling us how to do things.
So before we go to the good ones, I thought we'd bring up the most interesting one, and I'll let you kick this off. We have the famous or infamous The Builder. Considered one of the strongest ones, at the end of the game, you score 6 points for each building you control. Larissa and Neathal. But no one knows her name, they will just call her The Builder.
Yeah. The Builder's interesting because she didn't make it on either of our best or worst lists. And that's very telling because the Builder's strategy is fairly linear and fairly obvious in the course of gameplay. And it can either be just game-breakingly powerful if you're allowed to do what you want, or if the table is working to keep you out of Builder's Hall, taking away your commerce quests to get free buildings, you're gonna just end up getting kicked to the curb. And there's just such a high degree of variance with the Builder. You have to try not to play her in a linear fashion while still playing her in a semi-linear fashion.
Yeah, with good players, you can only hide it for so long, and that's not long at all. It's interesting to me because there were, off the top of my head, there were 4 quests that let you get one or multiple buildings. There's at least 2 or 3 intrigue cards that let you take over or destroy a building.
Mm-hmm.
So in the right game, especially if you can get the Arcana plot quest completed, where you can use a spot anyone else has, the builder can be devastating. Because if they can't block you from Builder's Hall anymore, so you can build every single round and get some of those cards, you're talking about a 60, 70, 80 point bonus at the end of the game. And you can spend your time blocking other people from getting the quests they need. But that's when everything's going right. When it's going wrong, oh great, I'll take the castle, I'll buy a building, and then you just flip off whoever the builder is because there is nothing they can do about it. And so it's that weird one to me, because I've had games where I have been rolled as the builder, where just there is no chance. And I've had ones where by round 3 I knew I was going to win. And it's so board dependent, it's so card dependent.
And with the builder, a lot of the success with the builder is also contingent upon the types of buildings that come out throughout the course of the game. If you have buildings that are relatively cheap to build and give you strong benefits like extra pieces for opponents using them, you can afford to lose out on a few buildings because you're going to be picking up enough extra meeples along the way that you're going to be able to complete quests on the board in addition to building your buildings. And that's where you tend to have the most success with the builder, is you're getting the bonus for building things that people want to use to advance their own plans, but you're also getting enough other stuff without having to commit any of your actions, or relatively few of them, that you're able to complete quests too. And since you're not getting bonuses for quests, you don't care what quests you do. You want them to be easy to complete and or worth a bunch of points.
And as a mechanic, I really like the builder. It's a very different style of play. It's a very nice change of pace. I like getting it every so often, because you know it's going to be an interesting game. It may be good, it may be bad, maybe something in between, but it gives you a lot of flexibility in how things are going to go. And so I like it. It's a great addition, but I can't put it on my worst, even though there are games it's not the card you want, and I can't put it on my best because if the board doesn't come up right, it's just not there. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, well now that we have gotten the most interesting one out of the way, and we got Xanathar back to writing guides where he belongs, time to go with our favorite lords. And this was a tough one to narrow down for me. There were actually several I would have given honorable mention or I have personal likes to, but in the end I think we both came up with 3 that we like.
Yeah, it wasn't too hard for me to pick my 3, to be perfectly honest. I could easily give honorable mention to 1 or 2 more, but there are 3 I like to see pretty much above all others. However, my 3rd one is actually higher on your list, so we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, so we will start with my number 3, and then I'll just let you do the intro to the one we both have on our list.
Sounds good.
So, for number 3, I have, and forgive me for the pronunciation, Piergeiron, the Paladinson. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each piety quest and each warfare quest you complete. This is by far and away my favorite of the base lords in the original game. With warfare, obviously you want the orange soldiers, but a lot of times you also are going to find yourself wanting the clerics. What do you need for piety quests? Clerics, and it's good to have a few soldiers on hand. They synergize really, really well. When you combine the plot quests of piety and warfare, you have a lot of the best plot quests in the game. And if you can get a few of those working for you early on, and you get a few of the right buildings, it's just a really, really good combination to play. There's almost always going to be a bunch of piety or a bunch of fighter quests out there. It lets you jump to the ones you want. You might get the plot quest where you can take away extra corruption, you can get an extra guy. If you get the Yawning Portal, it's like getting an extra turn. There's just so much you can do with him while racking up the bonus points for all these things. And granted, while the warfare plot quests being so popular can work against you because other people grab them, they are not working on bonus points for themselves when they do that. When you get those, you get the quest, and you get the bonus points for finishing it anyway. And to me, of the originals, that is my favorite one by far.
Yeah, and I can see that. Like I mentioned earlier, piety is just not my bit, but if I have to pair it with something, warfare's the way to go.
Yeah.
They overlap nicely. You have access to a lot of really strong plot quests. If I have to grit my teeth and pick one, that's the one I'm going to pick.
Unfortunately, warfare does not have the big money cost that so many of the others do, like skullduggery and that. So you kind of mitigate the money thing from the piety.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, I believe I had this as number 2 on my list, but it was number 1 on yours.
Which one?
Irusyl?
It's your number 2 and my number 3.
Oh, you're number 3.
So, yeah, Irusyl Eraneth basically gives you the ability to pick a quest type, and you get 6 points for every completed quest of that type at the end of the game.
And it doesn't surprise me it's on your top list, because it's very much on mine as well.
It just gives you so much flexibility and freedom to play the game based on the board. If you can read the table and see what everyone else is going for, there's going to be a type of quest that's going to be underserved. Sometimes it's going to be skullduggery, and that's going to suck. But other times, Arcana is going to go ignored, or Piety is going to go ignored, or Commerce is going to go ignored. And if you can go all in on one of those types and really just work on getting as many of them done as possible, you can clean house with this Lord.
Yeah, and exactly what you said. The extra 2 points per quest, it's that nice little bonus for missing out on being able to grab 2. But since you get to choose what you're going after, it's so much easier to hide what you're doing early game, especially if you decide to change strategies second or third round, which you can't do with other lords, but you can do very successfully here. The other part I love about this lord is since you're choosing your quest at the end of the game, you can see what type of buildings come up, what kind of soldiers are easily accessible. You know, is it a low money board? Is it a high money board? You can look at your intrigue cards. You can look at the quests out on the board. Everybody else kind of has to hope that the board falls their way. But when you have this one, you can craft your strategy based on what's there. And I think that's such a big leg up when you're getting started, because it's really rare when a board is just shotgun scattered a little bit of everything. There's almost always an obvious, oh look, all 3 of those buildings give extra rogues, and no one seems to want those skullduggery quests, and boom, you're off.
Exactly. Just the freedom to play the game, how the board is set up, just it's hard not to have this lord in the top 3.
Yeah. And and half the time you have the lords with 2 different ones, you usually end up having a lot of one type of quest and just a couple of the other anyway. So here you're just getting a little bit of an extra bonus to go after your best one. Alrighty.
Well, for my number 2, I actually took Khelben Arunsun, the Blackstaff. At the end of the game, you score 4 points for each Arcana quest and for each Warfare quest you completed. Now, I get that on the surface, the Blackstaff doesn't synergize amazingly well. Warfare does require a handful of wizards here and there, but it's not really their primary bit. But you're able to often pick up extra pieces to put in your tavern through intrigue cards, which is where Arcana really shines. That's really its game plan and my favorite route to pursue in Lords of Waterdeep, is just to play the Arcana game, get into Waterdeep Harbor, start tossing mandatory quests out to Shane and maybe a few of the other lords at the table.
And Shane.
But and mostly Shane.
And maybe Shane.
Look, you have a reputation at this point.
Fair.
And because you're able to pick up extra warriors pretty easily on most boards, and you've got intrigue cards that'll help pick up your wizards or extra warriors, you're able to kind of split your attention in a couple of directions that still are working toward the same goal. It does require a little more luck and a little more care to put together, but generally speaking, I've always had a positive experience playing this lord.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Arcana it awards you with so many intrigue cards. You have ones where you get to just pick up and play 4 in a row. And you get the right ones, you're suddenly pulling in 4 extra rogues and 2 extra wizards and extra money, and you're putting mandatory quests on your rival in 1 turn. That's a big boost for you, while you also get to push someone down the table. And of course, you loving a battle wizard. I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Never saw it coming.
No, not in a million years.
Oh, I will reveal... Give myself a little bit of a drum roll. My favorite one by far. Danilo Thann. At the end of the game, you score 3 points for every non-mandatory quest you complete. I absolutely love this because I'm a master at chaining together a lot of quests. In a 3-player game, it's not unusual for me to manage to finish 18 or 19 when I'm not constrained by a specific quest type. And even in a 3-player game, a lot of times when other people have 7 or 8, I'll have 12 or 13 by the end. So for me, even if it's 1 point less, getting points for every single quest I manage, it also makes those, 3-point skullduggery quests, 3-point little warfare quests, those become much more valuable to me because I only need 3 pieces, but I keep getting bonus points. It also lets me play the board. If there are cards that give me extra rogues or extra pieces, I can get them, start chaining a few together, and short of a bunch of mandatory quests coming up, I know I'm scoring a lot of points with this Lord. You're not in a terrible game, I'm still getting 30 bonus points. In a good game, I may be getting 60. And while you're trying to figure out which Lord I'm playing, I'm grabbing Skullduggery, I'm grabbing Warfare, I'm grabbing Piety. It takes you a while to piece together what I'm doing. I have the ability to grab a building that gives me a nice bonus, which then makes you think, oh, is he playing Sangalor or Halistar? And you can't block him. So you're just going to get those bonus points. So for my style of play, I absolutely love the fact that every single quest I can just shove in there and get done. Bonus points. So for me, by far and away, Thann's my guy.
Yeah, I can understand the appeal of Thann. It does not necessarily mesh with my style of play very well. I like pursuing the little quests, but I'm usually able to pursue the quests that require 3 or 4 pieces in a Lord that gives me a higher bonus for 2 different types. So it usually works better for me to just pursue that route with the Lord I've got. But there is definitely something to be said for the ability to keep the table guessing for a longer period of the game, especially if the table is prone to working against you. So I can definitely appreciate that.
It's happened once or twice in the past.
Yeah, maybe a time or two.
Oh, did I say dozen or did I say twice? Yeah.
I will neither confirm nor deny my role in facilitating that.
Well, I'm pretty sure I know the one you have, number 1. Would you like a drum roll?
Yeah, sure, why not? Alright, well, for mine, I kind of play the opposite angle to Shane's number 1 here, as my number 1 is Trobriand. At the end of the game, you score 5 bonus points for each quest you completed worth at least 10 points. And this just works perfectly for what I want to be doing in a game. Much like Thann, you can basically pick up any type of quest you want. You just care that the number at the bottom has the number 10 or a higher number on it. And there are a lot of quests that will give you 10 to 15 points, or sometimes even more, for just turning in 4 or 5 pieces, or maybe 3 pieces and a couple of gold.
Especially if you get the right piety quests. That's definitely the case.
Yeah, Piety and Arcana are both really good at that. Warfare even slips in there occasionally, too.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. You tend to like to get points in bunches, and so the fact that you're getting one of the highest bonuses a Lord gives on top of a quest that already paid you well, it makes a lot of sense. It also, you get a little bit of that same thing where you can hide who you are. It's a little bit harder, because at some point people will recognize that you're grabbing a bunch of 10-point quests. But at the same time, if you have a good pieces going, or you have a good card engine going, you can't just block one type of building and prevent that Lord. Like, he can be powerful. Like, I see how it works. Just the few times I have played him with my particular style, I just have not gotten as many higher point quests done as I would have thought was possible. And so it always seems like it should do really well for me, and it ends up just kind of floating towards the middle. And then, obviously, if you get a bunch of the smaller ones popping up on the board, you have to spend a guy wiping the board as opposed to getting resources. And just, it's kind of a balance there. It depends what comes up, but it's one of those that can be very strong. It's not my cup of tea, but you have used that to defeat me several times successfully, so I can't argue with the effectiveness of it. I've seen it too many times.
Completely fair. And when the table figures out what you're doing, it's great that they go in and take some of the higher point quests off the table, but that's not necessarily the end of the world for you. 'Cause both of our number one picks are very adaptable.
Yeah.
If they start coming after a specific type of quest or a specific point value, fine, whatever. I'll switch up and go over here for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And so it doesn't surprise you that these two are some of the better ones, and the fact that you're not tied to one type of quest, I think, gives you a huge advantage. It's the same reason that we both had Irusyl on there, because that adaptability of you can't be blocked out of Skullduggery, you can't be blocked out of Commerce, you can't be starved for Wizards and Arcana, you just can jump around. And I think that's the one trait all our top picks kind of have in common.
Agreed. Flexibility is what really helps you keep from falling behind in Lords of Waterdeep. Because, let's be honest, there's not really often a getting ahead. It's falling the least behind.
Yeah. Alright, so fans of the Lords of Waterdeep out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, hit the subscribe button, and in the comments, we want to hear what you're saying. Is there a particular lore that you have used to great effect? Are there some that we underrated? Are there some you feel like we overrated? We want to hear about it. So please go ahead and comment, like, subscribe below, and we will be coming back to you shortly, hopefully with a name next time. If you like what you just saw, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more great gaming content.